Hi, I'm Bobby from Bobby's Guitar Lessons. I am here to talk about how to choose your first guitar. There's a few things you probably want to know about before you set out on that journey. First thing you want to know is which guitar you want to choose. There's two types, basically. There's the electric guitar and there's an acoustic guitar. There's a lot of pros and cons to each guitar type, electric or acoustic. The thing I like about acoustics is that they're portable. You can take them anywhere. You can play them anywhere. Take them outside in your backyard. Go camping with them. Whatever you decide to do, you don't have to plug them in. So they take a lot less equipment. The other thing about them that is both a pro and a con is that they're harder to play. And the reason that's a pro and a con is that because when you're learning how to play and figure out how to play on an acoustic, the reason it's harder to play is it's harder to press down on these steel strings. That being said, if you wanted to switch to an easier type of guitar, like an electric guitar or a nylon string guitar, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So that's both a pro and a con in my mind. It's a great way to learn because, like I said, you can take them anywhere. If you just want to go hang out at the beach, practice for a little while, and then go swimming or whatever you're doing, then you can do that. The other thing that I like about the acoustic guitar is that there's a lot less gear involved. When you buy an electric guitar, you have to plug it into a computer or an amp in order to hear it correctly. You can tool around with it without all of that, but you're not going to like it as much. There's two different types of acoustic guitars. There's a nylon string and there's a steel string. This is a steel string. Nylon string guitars are easier to play. However, they're typically used for styles like classical. So if you're getting into classical, I highly suggest considering a nylon string. So as far as electric guitars go, one of the pros is that most people want to start with an electric guitar because their favorite players play an electric. Their favorite band, they're playing electric guitars. So if that's the case and you want to emulate your favorite guitar player, get an electric. They're a lot of fun. If you want to play hard rock, heavy metal, that kind of stuff, don't even bother with an acoustic yet. Just go out and get yourself your electric guitar. You'll probably be happier. One of the cons, and I think I mentioned this before, is that you need a lot more equipment. You got to have an amp or some way to plug it into something like a computer. Besides that, you need the cable to go into it. If you're plugging into a computer, you need an interface to plug it into because you can't just plug the guitar directly into a computer. There has to be an interface there. So that's something to consider when you're planning out your budget. As far as body styles go, the acoustic has a couple of different styles. Some are larger than others. This one's not too bad. The Dreadnought tends to be a little bit wider here, and it's kind of bulkier. This one's a little bit thinner. For electric guitars, there's a couple of different body styles. There's the hollow body, which is basically, it's a thinner body than an acoustic, but it's also hollow like the acoustic, and a lot of times they'll have sound holes on them as well. That's the sound hole on this one. Sometimes they'll have the sound holes right here on each side. There's semi-hollow electrics, which, as the name says, they are somewhat hollow. And then there's solid body guitars, which are like the Stratocasters and the Gibson and Les Pauls. Each one has their own tone and their own type of benefit. And so, I mean, let's face it, if you get into guitar, you're going to want probably several different kinds of guitars because they all are different and they all give you different sounds. And you're going to inevitably have this argument with your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever they're going to be asking you, why do you need so many guitars? Well, they all have a different purpose. That's why. And, people who don't play don't understand that. The other thing to consider with electric guitars is the pickups. There's basically two types of pickups. There's active guitar pickups and there's passive guitar pickups. Passive guitar pickups use simple transducers that are built by wrapping a bunch of copper coils around a magnet. The location of the magnet in proximity to the strings is what causes the strings to magnetize, and then when the strings move, they disturb the magnetic field and cause the electrical current to pass through the copper, and that's what makes the sound. There's no batteries or electricity involved, whereas there's also active guitar pickups, and they're basically the same thing. However, they use less copper wire, and so they also use a battery, usually located on the back of the guitar. It's like a 9-volt battery. You plug that in there, and it gives it like a little preamp to the amp so that it projects better. There are benefits and drawbacks to each. The passive guitar pickups tend to have a lot more hum or interference when you're playing them. Like when you get too close to a amplifier, you start hearing the feedback. That happens a little bit more often with a passive pickup. Passive pickups tend to also have a higher dynamic range, which is one of the things that they're sought after for. They have a lower frequency, which gives it more of a warm tone compared to the active pickups. Active pickups are said to be colder, basically, not as much feeling behind it, I guess you could say. But the good thing about active pickups is that there's a lot of guitar players, like jazz players, that feel it articulates the strings when you're doing a solo or something. That articulation is there. So there's benefits and drawbacks to both. You just got to play them, see how it sounds, see how it feels to you, and decide which ones you like. The other thing about pickups is that there's a couple of different types. There's single coil and there's double coil. Single coil is just that. It's just a single line of the coils that are all lined up across your strings like this, and it picks up each string. The double coil is basically the same thing, only the coils are set together. The double coils are also called humbuckers. They were created by combining the two single coils into one pickup and then wiring them so that they're magnetic poles oriented in opposite directions. This kind of cancels out the hum that you kind of get from the single coils. That's one reason they're called humbuckers. Why would you choose a single coil over a humbucker? The single coils tend to have a brighter sound. Humbuckers are more of a dark sound. They're played in a lot of heavy metal type songs, so it depends on what your style is, what you like to hear. So that's why I say, get out there, play them. And with these types of guitars, get out there and play a bunch. Don't just get online and go, oh, that one looks good. Don't choose. That's another thing. Don't choose your guitar just because it looks good. You want to get out there and you want to play it. You want to see how it sounds. It's got to have good tone. It's got to keep the tuning peg's got to keep the tune, or it's just going to be really frustrating. There's lots of pretty guitars out there and they sound like shit. Don't get one. Just go out there and if you don't know how to play, bring a friend that does, or ask somebody at the music store, play it for you. See how it sounds. If it sounds good when someone's playing it, it's going to sound good when you start playing it. So, or at least once you've gotten a few things down, you'll enjoy it a lot more. I can guarantee it. But yeah, just get out there and play a whole bunch. Play a whole bunch of guitars, different brands, cheap brands, expensive brands. See what you like. And once you figure out your budget, go and play a lot of guitars within your budget. Don't just go in and play the Martins and the Taylors because they sound so great. Find one that's within your budget and go with that. There's some other gear you should definitely consider when you get your guitar. If you're getting an electric guitar, you're going to definitely want an amp or an interface to plug it into your computer. I highly suggest one of the two, if not both. Along with that, you're going to want to get a cable to plug it into. Get a good cable, too. Don't get some crappy, cheap cable. They short out and they sound like crap and you get frustrated. The other thing you're going to want is a good strap. It doesn't have to even be a good strap. Just needs to be a strap that's going to stay on your guitar. The thing about straps is sometimes they fall. These get loose and they'll fall out and the strap will fall off the peg that's there. Got this brand new invention called a strap lock. You basically put a metal piece around the strap itself, and then that connects into the peg, and it holds the strap in place, and it can't fall out. And I've got one on my new bass, and I love it. I'm going to get more for my guitars. They're great. The last thing you want to have happen is your guitar falling on the floor, especially a new one. It can affect things, it can break things, and you don't want your brand new guitar broken. That sucks. So I highly recommend those when you can get them. They're easy to install. The other thing I recommend is getting a music stand because you're going to want to have good posture when you're playing. You don't want to be hunched over on a bed like this because it's going to hurt your back eventually, and it's bad all around. You're going to end up with issues. So get a nice music stand that you can put right in front of you and sit in a comfortable position upright and not be hunkered over on a bed or a couch or something. The other thing you're going to want to consider is guitar stand or wall hanger. If you want to keep it out of the case when you're not playing it, you can set it on a stand or put it on a wall hanger. It's easy to access that way. It's kind of nice just to be able to pick it up and start playing. This one I keep in the case all the time because it's my nice guitar. and I don't want anything happening to it, for one thing. And the manufacturer actually recommends that it be kept in the case because it keeps the humidity at the correct level, which with some nicer guitars you want to keep in mind. So definitely think about one of those three things: a case, a stand, or a wall hanger. The other thing you're going to want to get is a capo. Eventually you're going to want to use one of these, so you may not want to get it right away, but I would get it eventually. What it does here is, like, say you want to play a chord, just in a regular open chord, you can play it like that. What you can do with this is put it on, say, like the 3rd fret, and play that chord up here on the 5th fret. Oh, that sounds terrible. And play that chord on the 5th fret, completely changes the key. And if you're trying to play and sing, that's a must. So definitely think about getting a capo. Get some picks. Picks are cheaper than hell. Pick up a couple of different styles, see what you like. One of the things I think is a must, you can't leave the guitar store with your guitar without it, is one of these electronic tuners. These are a godsend, especially when you're first starting out. You can tune by ear, and in my guitar lessons, I will teach you how to tune by ear. But these are so much easier, and they're accurate, and you're gonna love it. Just don't leave the store without one. Get a tuner. Get an electronic tuner. The other thing you might consider is a few extra strings. Sometimes strings break, or sometimes you wear them out. You might want to just change them. Learn how to change them. I'll have a video on that here sometime soon. It's not hard to change strings, so definitely a good thing to have in your case if you need them. And lastly, I recommend getting like a metronome, or you could download an app on your phone that basically is just a metronome app. A lot of guitar apps out there have metronomes on them. They're great. And when you're starting out, you got to learn how to keep time, and that really helps you to keep time. So I really highly recommend getting some sort of an app or a metronome. You can just get the old-fashioned kind of metronome if you like that too. The other thing with apps these days and computers is you can think about maybe a drum machine. These apps are phenomenal these days. I just downloaded one of myself onto my phone, and you can get all kinds of different timings and grooves and all kinds of stuff to play with. And it's a great way to practice, because if you want to play in a band, you're going to need to keep time with everybody and figure out where that timing is and how that sounds and how it feels. And that's just going to help you get there faster. So I highly recommend that. Just going to wind down with a few things to think about when you are evaluating a guitar. Like I said, go out and play a whole bunch. The first thing you need to think about when you're playing all of those guitars is, how does it sound? Sounds like crap, put it back. You don't want it. After that, then consider the price. Is it something you can afford, something you had in your budget? You can start with a $50 guitar on up to thousands of dollars. So I suggest don't spend thousands of dollars on your first guitar. My recommendation when you're setting your budget is spend at least $150 to $200. That'll get you a decent starting guitar. Fender makes those Squier guitars. They're not bad. They're not great either, but they're not bad. It's a great starter guitar. Quality is what you pay for. If you want to go to Sears and Roebuck and buy one of those cheap-ass guitars, you're not gonna be happy with it. They're not good quality. They're not good tone. Don't do it. Go to a music store, play them, see what you like. Like I said, the Fender makes a decent one. Ibanez makes a great guitar, and they're both affordable. So consider, there's a couple of brands you might take a look at, but don't buy it just because of the brand. Look at all kinds. The other thing to think about is playability, or the action of the guitar. When you're holding it, does your hand fit the neck? Is it easy to play a chord or two? I mean, you might, you're a beginner, you may not be able to play a chord yet, but whoever's playing it, ask them, how does that feel? Does it have good action? That's really important when you're picking a guitar. If it's not easy to play, you're not going to want to play it. So, let's set yourself up for success instead of failure. I'll always come back to this one, tone. The intonation is really important, so keep that in mind always. The other thing to think about is size. Some people might like a smaller guitar. Some people may like the feel of an electric guitar because it's got a smaller body volume. That might be something to keep into consideration. If it's really big and bulky and you're not comfortable playing it, you're not going to like playing it as much. So, if size is an issue, if you're a smaller stature, like, a lot of us are, then you might consider a 3/4 size. I have a bass that's a 3/4 size. It's a lot of fun to play. I love it. I also have this bass behind me that is a full size. Both are awesome guitars, and but the 3/4 one is a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot, and it's great for practicing because it's not as heavy, so I'm not standing there throughout my band practice for 3-4 hours sometimes, and my back's killing me because this is a 10-pound guitar. Basses are heavy. Basses are like the heaviest guitars. When you're evaluating the guitar too, take a look at it. You want to make sure that the seams are all intact. There's nothing that's like falling off, or there's not a bunch of, especially if it's a new guitar, there's not a bunch of scratches on it. You don't want a bunch of scratches. And there's no nicks that you feel along the seams. The fretboard should be straight. The strings should be, equally set apart and straight. The frets shouldn't stick out from the sides. You should be able to rub your hands along the fretboard and not have like it prick you at any point there. And then there's one of the most important things I think is the tuning pegs, because if your guitar's not staying in tune, it's going to be really frustrating and you're going to not have as much fun. So make sure when you're evaluating a guitar, have someone play it for a little while, or you play it for a little while, and see if it's staying in tune, because that's really an important thing. Even a cheap guitar can stay in tune for more than a couple of songs. Definitely consider that. Consider what type of pickups you want on it. So, something you might want to research before you go out there a little bit more. And lastly, get the best guitar you can afford. And don't buy just because of the brand. Fender sounds great because it's a Fender, but there's some crappy Fenders out there too. It's just take a look at it and make sure it's right. And again, don't buy it because it's pretty. That's such a mistake. So get it because it sounds great. Because if you're playing for friends and they hear it and they're cringing, it's not a good thing. Don't do that to your friends. Just because it looks pretty, it doesn't mean a thing. So just don't do it. As far as where to buy, like I said, you're going to want to definitely try out all of these guitars that you have in mind. So go to local music stores. If you have a guitar center around, they're a great place to go because they have a huge selection. And once you figure out what you want to buy, you can check it out online and see if the price is better if you want. I mean, it's up to you. The great thing about buying at a local music store is that you can take it home right away. If you buy it online, it's going to take a couple days to get there. And then the other thing to consider about buying online is once you get it, those guitars come right from the factory, and oftentimes they need some adjustments. The intonation might be off a little bit. The strings might be need adjusting. This right here is called a truss rod. And what this does is it'll adjust the neck so that it has better intonation and playability. So if it doesn't play right away, take it in and get it looked at. This bass behind me hadn't been played for many years, and it was kind of off. And so I took it into a music store, and he fixed it and fixed the pickups, and he fixed the neck on it, and it played 10 times better after that. So something to keep in mind. And that's pretty much all I've got right now. Have fun. Shopping for a guitar is a hell of a lot of fun. You get to play a whole lot, and I to this day, I'll go to music stores and I'll spend a couple hours in there just playing a bunch of guitars, drums, whatever, I don't give a shit, and have fun with it, because this is about having fun. You're not doing this because it's drudgery. We're doing it because it's fun. So if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. So have fun, and have a great night. Bye.